I'm assuming that.
Like to talk, you just hit the talking head.
Okay. We can have 4 at a time on.
Huh?
Okay.
Forward.
Is he speaking?
Can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention? Anybody has phones, I'd like them to silence them, please. I would like to bring this commission meeting, awards, and staff presentations to order.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is AJ Garcia. I'm the Hunter Trapper Education Administrator, and my coworker James Harbert. And we're here today to present our Outstanding Instructor of the Year awards for the regions and the statewide winner. So we'll start with the Northwest region, and that's Emily Baroni. Emily is a very young hunter education instructor. She's been less than a year as an adult instructor, but she's been working as a junior instructor, and even before that, before she was old enough to become a junior instructor, she was helping out at her local clubs and classes. She has exhibited tremendous dedication and passion as a hunter trapper education, and I think probably the youngest regional award winner that we know of. We expect great things from her, and we'd like to present her with this plaque. Come on down, Emily.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Congratulations.
And you also have a print here. Would you like us to set this aside for you so that
We can give it to you.
you're seated? And what you want to do here, I think we've got Bob Fry here ready to take pictures. Let's see, can you hold that with that? I'll help you here. And next we have from the Southwest region, that's David Gardner. He's been a member of the Hunter Trapper education team for 15 years. He attends all the classes that are held in his district, and he gives time over and above the time spent as a hunter ed instructor in the classroom. He even spent time in 2020 teaching in other venues that needed his assistance. So he's gone above and beyond and outside of his general area. David, you want to come on down? Here you are, sir. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Step around here and we'll get a picture with you there. All right. And from the North Central region, we have Mike Hobbins. He was coach. Mike lost his eyesight in a hunting incident years ago and has turned that into a teaching moment in his classes. So many new students, look forward to seeing and hearing from Mike and his experience on how it really hits home. And so he's worked very hard. Mike, you want to come on down?
Oops.
Here you go. And here's a plaque for you, sir. There's that. And then we have the print for you, sir. Here, and I'll hang on to that for you if it'd make it easier for you. All right. And moving right along now, we come to the South Central's Regional Award winner, and that's Carl Fox. Carl has been teaching for 45 plus years, I believe. He's the Perry County coordinating instructor. I actually seem to talk to Carl quite a bit on the phone, and he's always ready to tell me when I need to work on something. But in his years, I am not going to argue with this man. He knows his stuff. He knows what he's doing. So, Carl has taken on a lot of duties. What was this here? Yeah, he's logged 81 hours of annual training for instructors. I mean, that's a phenomenal amount of training. So, Carl, come on down and congratulations. Here you are, sir.
Thank you, AJ.
Congratulations.
And you're on, I think, get out here. You want me to set this aside for the meeting? I'll do that. And that brings us to the Northeast region with Mr. Stephen Decker. He's been teaching since 1988, both in and out of the classroom. When the pandemic struck and changed the way we run our programs, he sought out every opportunity to inform and educate, and be a part of giving back, even though we weren't formally holding a lot of classes. So, a lot of the youth in his area, were able to at least look forward to a little bit of normalcy during the pandemic. So Mr. Decker is our Northeast Regional Award winner. come on over. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. And then Ralph Gambler from the Southeast region. He's been an instructor for 42 years. Um, he's helped inspire and lead his local team. In fact, his local team went to their game warden and requested that Ralph be nominated for this award. I mean, to say that an instructor can inspire others to that level within his own team, to ask for him to be nominated, shows his level of passion and dedication. So, Mr. Gambler, if you'd come on over. Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations.
All right. And that leads us to our statewide winner of the Outstanding Instructor of the Year Award. This is done through the Hunter Trapper Education Program and a little voting process. It was very tight. The race was really hard to really pick a winner out of these outstanding instructors. But Mike Hobbins has won this year's Outstanding Instructor of the Year for the state and Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Mike, you want to come on down? And Warden Remen Snyder, who nominated Mike as the Outstanding Instructor for the North Central Region, would like to say a few words.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, my name's Dirk Remensnyder. I am the state game warden for Union County, and Mike is one of my instructors. Temporarily, Uncle Sam has me on another mission for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so that's why you see me like this today. First day of turkey season, 2010. I was on patrol at state game lands when I received a call of a hunting-related shooting incident. I was 2 miles away. I was the first on scene with another neighbor at this accident, and it was Mike I first met there. After giving him initial care, stabilizing, we flew him on life flight to Geisinger. And from that point, with all the investigations, all the continuing lawsuits, I came to know Mike and his family personally. And a lot of times he explained to me what it was like going through this. And that's when I found out, his second name is Coach. Mike coached every kid in Little League in his town coming the whole way up through and had a profound impact on their lives. He coached high school football at Mifflinburg for years, continuing that profound impact on kids' lives. And after realizing this and seeing this, hunter education is coaching. And I approached Coach Hobbins and said, you need to tell your story and it's time to get back into coaching. And he jumped at the opportunity. And with his close friend and fellow hunter education instructor, Emil Stenger, who is also a teacher at Mifflinburg, they came up with a piece in the safety portion of the program. To sit there as an adult, as a kid, or anything at the safety program at our education courses, when Mike comes up, it will take words out of anybody's mouth. How the focus is on him when he tells about what he went through and why the safety is so important. Even the youngest kids in the room who can't sit still are riveted to what he tells in his story. And I am honored, humbled, and proud to have Coach on my hunter education instructor team. Thanks so much, Mike. One more, Mike. He got it. I can sit beside. He got you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
And that concludes the Hunter Trapper Education Award presentation. Thank you all.
Well, first of all, I want to welcome everybody. It is so nice to have a board meeting with actual human beings actually in the board meeting. Not a big fan of Zoom anymore, but really glad everybody's here. Next award we'd like to present is our Staff 25-Year Awards. You know, at the end of the day, it's the staff which makes all this happen. Can't say enough about the quality of the staff we here at the Pennsylvania Game Commission. So we have 4 individuals who will receive their 25-year award today, and then I'll announce there's 4 that weren't unfortunately able to make it today. So first up, Robert D'Angelo. And I think we're going to do a group picture outside, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Bob? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Good job. Next, Bobby Mercer. Bradley Stein. And Timothy Wieland. Unfortunately, not able to be here today, but to recognize them, wish I brought my reading glasses. Brian Bollinger from the South Central region, Ted Edler from the North Central region, and Stanley Hooper from the Northwest region. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much for everything you've done. And we'll get your group picture right outside. So on behalf of the President and the Commission, great job. And next on the agenda is Distinguished Service, yes it is. Also, you'll notice there's a new face up here. Is our new Deputy Executive Director for Operations that replaced Rich Palmer, who retired. But he doesn't start till tomorrow, so you don't have to really treat him any better than you would any other time. He really doesn't technically belong up here, but we're glad he's here.
Good afternoon. My name's Deanna Vance, and I am the Director for Automated Technology Services. And this is Dan Dunlap. He's the Director of Administrative Services, and we are here today to present the Distinguished Service Award to Tammy Klinger, Chris Magnus, Carissa Deibler, Chad Blau, Terry Heckroth, Jeff Orban, and Linda Hambright. So I'll tell you a little bit about why they're achieving this award today. On January 15th, 2021, we launched our new licensed sales website, Huntfish PA. The project began 5 or 6 years ago, but officially got started with the release of the RFP in April 2017. The system is shared with the Fish and Boat Commission and provides a modern, convenient, and streamlined platform to outdoor enthusiasts. It's been a challenging project, and believe me, it still is. They can attest to that. And it's taken a monumental effort by this team to get our new platform up and running. We wouldn't be where we are today without the hard work and dedication from this amazing group of employees. They've worked through endless obstacles and challenges while continuing to support the existing system, our licensing issuing agents, internal employees and business processes, and most importantly, our customers. The process to implement a system of this magnitude is far greater than any of us can imagine. Some of the responsibilities they have worked through while partnering with the Fish and Boat Commission and our vendor, NIC, include gathering and documenting business requirements, analyzing and managing business process changes, designing, planning, testing, training, developing communications, and so much more. This team has worked endless hours, many times during evenings and weekends, and has shown unwavering commitment to the agency and our mission-critical function of selling licenses. Even though the system has been live for several months, they continue to spend countless hours working with NIC to support and improve the system. I'm extremely proud to work with this group of dedicated individuals, and I hope you'll join me in thanking and congratulating them for a job well done. So, Tammy Klinger. Chris Magnus. Thank you. Carissa Deibler. Thank you, Carissa. Chad Blau. Terry Heckroth. Yep, thank you. Jeff Orban. Jeff. And Linda Hambright. So I think we're going to do a group photo out in the lobby then. Thank you. And I think Tammy had a few words she wanted to add to this award.
Hello. I just have a few short words to say. In addition to the team members up here, I'd like to recognize the License Division staff who are front lines on the phones. Eduardo Aon, please stand up. Callie Schell and Shane Reed. I'd like to thank you all. Without them, we would not be able to accomplish what we do. They are our front lines, and they take a lot of heat. So thank you all. You are a part of all of our teams. We are just a sub-team of our bigger team. Thank you.
Hey, Deanna, Spent. I know it's hard to even imagine and fathom the heart, sweat, and tears, and literally a lot of tears that this group has put behind this effort to get this running as best we can. There's one other individual, because she submitted the nominations and she would never nominate herself, but Deanna Vance You deserve one too.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. Thanks, Scott, for all your hard work.
Congratulations, all award winners. Right now, we'll go into staff reports.
Okay, let everybody clear out. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'm just going to be presenting about a survey that we completed earlier this year of our reactivated archery hunters. So first we'll just take a look at the sample for this survey, and these were resident adult and senior licensed buyers who were reactivated, or they purchased a license again, a general hunting license and an archery license after 2 years of not purchasing. So those were hunters who purchased this year, the year that just completed, the 2021 license year, after not having purchased in the 18-19 or the 19-20 license year. And the objective was just to determine what motivated them to purchase again, to become reactivated again in the 2020 fall license year. So just a quick respondent profile. We had over 1,400 responses to this questionnaire. It's about a 30% response rate, which is unfortunately a little lower than we had previously gotten, but there's been some irregularities in the mail, so hopefully those response rates come back up again. It was about 10.7% female and 89.3% male, which is almost exactly what we have just in our general licensed buyers. And since this is adult and senior licensed buyers, the average age of those who responded was just over 46.5 years old. Okay, so one of the questions we asked, so these are people who didn't buy for 2 years straight. So they didn't buy, and we wanted to see where they fit in as identifying themselves as a hunter, because we know that hunter identity is really critical to continued participation and license purchase. So this is encouraging. They're reactivated, but still, after not buying for 2 years in a row, 85% of them said they think of themselves as hunters. Only 11% thought of themselves as former hunters, and 5% never thought of themselves as hunters. So hopefully maybe that 5% is even in the process of becoming a hunter and, participating more regularly as well. So we just wanted to get a general sense of how they get information from the Game Commission. So this first question here, this do you receive emails from or follow the different types of social media, that was asked each one yes or no. So those do not add up to 100%. So we see that the most common way that they followed the Game Commission was through the emails. And then for social media, it was Facebook at almost 18%, just under 1% for those on Twitter, and then about 4% for Instagram. The next question was what we would call like a forced choice. What is the primary way out of those options given that they get information about changes to our regulations and hunting dates and things like that? So we see here the highest percentage by far is that about 42% of them got their information from the Game Commission website. About a quarter of them or a little more said from their friends or family. Then that was followed by news releases, and everything else is a bit lower at under 10% for things like sportsmen's clubs, social media, and local newspaper or television. Okay, so this is one of the big reasons we did this questionnaire. Obviously, the thing that's changed the most in the last year and a few months was COVID-19. And there have been other states who have seen increases in license sales, some more than others. A few states, I think, have actually seen less. So we wanted to see if our reactivated license buyers, if they attributed their reactivation to buy a license because of COVID-19. And we see the vast majority do not. We see that 82% of our respondents said that COVID-19 did not affect their decision to go hunting in Pennsylvania this year. So we see some of the other reasons, they're all under 10%. So, maybe they had more free time, their priorities changed, they had a different family schedule, or that they had some sort of change in their job, that they were working less. So then we asked, this was a different question. We gave them 3 reasons because we didn't know what the response would be on that, of course, until they were all in. So what was the primary reason that they chose to go hunting again in Pennsylvania this year? And we see half of them said that because they had more free time to hunt. Now, obviously, you could have more free time for many reasons and not just because of COVID, but this could be something that it's hard to measure. They may have had more free time and it could have been a couple of things that got canceled, but not necessarily what they attribute it to. We also see, these are similar ways. There are things that are hard to measure, like the effects of marketing. We know that marketing is effective. We know that, our marketing efforts are successful, but it's really difficult to measure that sometimes because people may not realize that's what ultimately affected their decision to buy something from us. And then we see then the other 2 options are this extension of the archery season. And again, these are people, all of the respondents here to be in this sample had to be archery hunters. And then there was also, then that was followed by the opportunity to hunt on Sunday for the first time. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are 2 new things that happened this year. So despite the fact that we had COVID, we also had 2 really big changes just for archery alone. So this was the extension of the archery season and then these opportunities to go hunting on Sunday in Pennsylvania. So I think one of the first things we can look at here is this last column. We see about a third of the people responded and say, no, that wasn't important at all. Is this something that affected your decision to go hunting in Pennsylvania this year? How important were each of these 2 things? So we see a third of our respondents said that neither the extension of the archery season or the opportunity to hunt on Sunday was important at all. But then if we take a look, we see about 50% total for both of them are either important or extremely important for both of those options. So next, I just went a little bit deeper. So this is just a crosstab. And when we take a look, the total sample, so the slide I just showed you, those show you up at the top there, but about half the sample was younger than 49 years old, and the other sample was 49 and older, so I just took a look at that. And we can see some differences here that our younger hunters were more likely to say it was extremely important. So that's the highest percentage there for the younger hunters was that 30%. For our older hunters, it was still high. It was 46% either important or extremely important, but still that highest there is that 36.3%. If we take a look at our next slide, though, Sunday hunting, we see things that, even bigger differences with these 2 different age groups. So we have for the younger hunters, that's what really sticks out there. So we see 42% of our hunters younger than 49 years old said it was extremely important. So we have almost 60% of the respondents who are younger than 49 saying it was either important or extremely important that their decision to buy because of this opportunity to hunt on Sunday. Whereas our hunters 49 and older, still the category that got the highest response was this not at all important at almost 40%, but still we see among those hunters 49 and older that almost half of them did say it was still important or extremely important for them. And I think that this is very consistent with what we expect and what we hear from our older hunters. They may have different sets of values about doing anything, including hunting on Sundays, or they're also more likely to be retired, and they may not just have weekends to go hunting. Okay, so then this next question, it was very specifically because this was archery hunters only, and because we sent it out at the very end of the archery season while other hunting seasons were going on. So we only asked about this one single day. Did you go hunting on that Sunday, November 15, 2020, this year in Pennsylvania? So we see that it's roughly 50-50 split, but slightly more said no, they didn't go hunting that day. But again, the same difference plays out that our younger hunters, those younger than 49, over half of them said that they did. So that's 10% higher than our older hunters. So I think that was just one of the things that kind of struck me there as well. And when we just take a look at, younger than 49 compared to older than 49. Okay, another question we wanted to get a sense of, we did see about an 8% increase, I think, in our archery licenses sold this year. And this was just an idea, okay, these are people who are reactivated, and we wanted to get a sense of if they had ever purchased an archery license before. And we see that 47% of them said yes, when they were purchasing licenses, they always bought an archery license. 41% said no, they occasionally bought an archery license. So is this your first time at those 2? So, but still, 12% is quite high. For these people who reactivated, 12% of them had never purchased an archery hunting license before. So I think that is somewhat encouraging. And obviously, some things that we have there we can, see were that's a bit high, even for an increase of a license that was at 8%, which is fantastic, obviously. So Next, I just wanted to get a sense of, with the changes to the archery season, and a lot of what we hear of when we do focus groups or interviews with hunters is, some of the things they say about archery hunting is that the weather can be milder. They like going hunting in October. Others talk a little bit more about, the seasons and going all the time, and I wanted to get a sense of that. So we see that over half of them did hunt throughout the entire archery season. Only 21% of them hunted only in October, and then about a quarter of them just hunted towards the end of it in November. Okay, and this is something that we talk about a lot, of course, our crossbow use. So I wanted to ask them if they used a crossbow at all during this archery season in Pennsylvania this year. So we see that it's kind of divided. Most of them only used a crossbow as the single highest, and then this is a really important, I think, other thing here is this 49 and older. Almost 60% of our hunters 49 and older only used a crossbow. We see a very small percentage used both, so I think that's important to see. There was about 1,400 respondents, so we're only getting at about 140 people there in that middle column, but still, some people who used both types of equipment. And then we see, for those who didn't use a crossbow at all, that's still the majority of our younger hunters, so almost 52% of our younger hunters didn't use a crossbow at all. Next, we wanted to get an idea of if they harvested or not, just to have a sense of maybe taking a look at the answers to this compared to some of our other responses. And among those who responded, again, this is just one group of reactivated hunters, 14% of them harvested a deer during our archery season. So this is one of the next ways now that I can just do what I mentioned, one of these crosstabs. So the columns here are yes and no to harvesting. And then the rows here are the types of archery equipment that they used. So we see, it's roughly between 10 and 20% of them harvested. And we see those who harvested at the highest level were those who used both types. So it's possible that they were more avid, maybe hunted a little bit more if they obviously either owned or had access to a crossbow and other archery equipment, followed by those who only used a crossbow, and then 11% who didn't use a crossbow at all. Listen to my voice here. Good thing I'm almost done. So if we take a look, reasons you returned to hunting in Pennsylvania this year, this was measured on a 5-point scale. So they were given all these options. Do you strongly agree is 1, strongly disagree is 1, 5 is strongly agree. The middle point is neither agree nor disagree. And so anything that's above here, so what I'm showing you here are these mean scores, and they're in descending order. So the highest mean scores are the highest level of agreement. Across the board, I want to spend more time outdoors. That's the only thing that got to that 4 with a level of agreement. But anything above 3 is really kind of, they agreed that that's what brought them to hunting. And that is really just these regulations based. Opportunity to hunt later into the rut, extended length of the archery season, and the first time to hunt on Sunday in Pennsylvania. So I just did a really basic ANOVA here. So you can just generally see our younger hunters had higher mean scores, but there's not really any difference that, some of the things that are bigger differences, this opportunity to hunt on Sunday for the first time, or a family or friend invited them to go hunting. Those were some of the ways that our younger and older hunters were different, but it seems like maybe our younger hunters were maybe just more likely to go into the 5s in some of these responses. So that just kind of shows you these regulations-based answers were in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th spot compared to anything related to COVID was really quite low. So definitely our hunters did not attribute their reactivation to anything specifically that changed in their life because of COVID. So, all right, just a few quick conclusions because there is a lot of information in this presentation. Regulations matter. So these changes that were made in 2020 to the archery season impacted their license buying behavior, specifically the Sunday hunting, and then obviously the extension also into the rut. And with Sunday hunting being especially important for those younger hunters. So they did say in that one question that it was about 60% of them said it was either important or extremely important for them to go hunting this year. And that our crossbows then are more frequently used and favored by our older hunters. That was something that stuck out to me as well. Well over 50% of our hunters 49 and older only used a crossbow. So that's everything I have. Thank you. Sure.
Commissioner, questions? Great job.
Okay, thank you. That's it. All right, great.
Next up, we have Sean Murphy. All right. Good afternoon. My name's Sean Murphy. I'm the state ornithologist within the Bureau of Wildlife Management in the Wildlife Diversity Division. And I come to you today to present two significant status changes in two iconic Pennsylvania raptors, the northern goshawk and the peregrine falcon. The first of these is the northern goshawk. This is a state's population who's headed in the wrong direction. And so much so that we've come to the point where I'm here today to propose changing the status of this species from protected to endangered. Just a brief overview of this species. The goshawk is a large, secretive forest raptor. It likes mature mixed forest stands. It has a diverse diet, but primarily focuses on ground and tree squirrels, large passerines, game birds. It's worth noting that Pennsylvania is at the southern limit of the range for the northern goshawk, at least on the eastern side of the continent. You can see that purple in the map kind of extends through, more or less the northern portion of Pennsylvania. But that wasn't always the case. Both Maryland and West Virginia only recently have stopped seeing some of their more regular occurring nesting activity. So two states that had a smaller population south of us, evidence is suggesting those no longer exist. Moreover, declines have been documented in 5 states around Pennsylvania. And there's no single driver that's been identified as influencing these declines for this raptor. There's been a suite of variables that have been considered and seem to contribute to some portion of the decline, such as forest disturbance like fragmentation or just habitat loss, declines in prey abundance, increases in predators, and then also West Nile virus, which seems to be a disease that these raptors are particularly susceptible to. So that little bit of background information brings us to the reason that I'm here today. So based on the best available data that we have for the Pennsylvania population of goshawks, we've recognized a significant decline over the past 3 decades. And along with that decline has been a range contraction. So we've seen a loss of some of the southern counties in the Appalachian that have had this species in the past. And if we look at some of the data that we've collected to highlight these concerns, the first set of data here is a comparison of our first 2 breeding bird atlases. So these occur 20 years apart with almost identical methods used in surveying. And these 2 numbers are occupied territories. These are based on atlas blocks during the survey that confirmed occupancy by goshawks. So you can see in this 20-year snapshot that we observe a 27% decline in occupancy of northern goshawks. This decline kind of triggered a group in Pennsylvania to kind of form through the Ornithological Technical Committee that included ornithologists from the agencies, as well as nonprofits, universities, as well as some falconers, to come together and build a survey and a way to better evaluate this secretive nestor. And so some of the work that was done from those actions were taking place in 2017 to 2019. That included public outreach for any information about new goshawk locations, as well as a visit to 100 historical nesting territories across the state. That was done in 2017 and followed up in 18 and 19. And as you can see, if you focus on the number of occupied territories, they were able to find anywhere 10 to 13 occupied territories across the entire state. And up there for record also is just this year, of those locations, we are now down to 2 known nest locations in the state. Of course, these are only the observed locations. But it's also important to, again, look at what's happening with this species around us. So this small map on the slide shows the conservation status according to the NatureServe database. The reddish pink color is critically imperiled populations, the orange is imperiled, the yellow is vulnerable, and blue is apparently secure. It's worth noting that the colors on this map for goshawks in our region does not paint a pretty picture. It's also worth noting that Maryland, New Jersey, and New York have already listed this species as endangered. Which brings me to the point of proposal here. And under Title 34, our definition of endangered species is any species in Pennsylvania, any species of wildlife threatened with extinction. And I think that the data that we've collected from various sources at this point point to that status classification. So if the proposal is approved, this is a list of kind of the 3 most immediate actions that would take place. The first being the distribution of best management practices, or BMPs for short. These documents will be used in the environmental review process to avoid, reduce, or mitigate disturbance at any known goshawk territory. When a project overlaps with a known goshawk territory. It's also important to note that these BMPs have been developed over the past few months in partnership with the Bureau of Wildlife Habitat Management. And a special thanks to them to reaching out to some of Pennsylvania's largest forest owners, both public and private, who have reviewed these BMPs, and they are on, for the most part, they're on board and ready to help bring back this species. The second action that the status change will do is limit falconry take of the species, and that's worth noting because that will remove that impact from this small population when we're looking at a population equation and trying to recover this species. And lastly, the Bureau of Wildlife Management will lead a charge in committing additional resources to work toward recovery, including developing a management and recovery plan, continued support in kind of the core range of the species in Pennsylvania, which is at the Allegheny National Forest. We will seek out research to address some of the critical knowledge gaps we have for this species, and we'll really begin to dig into potential impacts that West Nile virus may be having on this species. And just a little bit about the impact that this listing would have on industries working in the forested landscapes. This is a map that shows the 29 known goshawk territories, so these include ones that have not been active recently. These 29, if we zoom in, we get a closer look, we see the concentration around the Allegheny National Forest. There are 29 territories that would be protected within the environmental review process. Of those 29, 27 of them occur on public property, 2 of them on private lands. And it's also worth noting that this species is already listed as protected, so they are in the environmental review process already. So we were able to kind of look at the past 2 years and see how frequently environmental review gets a hit for goshawks overlapping with a project. And so in 2019 and 2020, we added those all together. There were 53 timber projects that got what they would call a hit, or they overlap with one of these territories. But of those 53, when they look at the details of the project and the biology of the bird, only 10 of them resulted in a request for seasonal restrictions. So really, and we don't see that changing with this listing. The environmental review process won't change very much, and so the same flow of information and partnership with these industries will continue. So in closing, I know this is brief, but there's a body of evidence to suggest that this population has significantly declined in the Commonwealth and meets that definition of endangered. And I think it's our job as the state's wildlife agency and our responsibility to act and make a statement to try and help this species out. If approved, we anticipate little change to the environmental review process, a limit on falcon retake, and again, the agency's commitment to working to recover this raptor in the Pennsylvania forest. And I think it's interesting because with such a small number of birds, it's hard to stand here and say that we're going to develop a management and recovery plan, and we're going to plant our flag that we're going to help recover this population. But I think that the next species that I'm going to present represents the work that can be done and the success we can have and that we have. And that I think this is just another one that would show the agency's long-term commitment to conservation and recovering threatened and endangered species for all Pennsylvanians. Which brings me to the peregrine falcon. So due to the effects...
John, I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Can you comment on falconry take? Is that legal now in
Yeah, okay, that's a good, yeah, so the question is falconry take legal now? Yes, so the species, without it being listed as threatened or endangered, falconry take is legal. So falconer is allowed to take a nestling from a nest. As long as it's not the last one, they're allowed to take it, and they have to, they report that to us, but that is part of the part of the equation of this population right now.
So you're saying currently it would be legal for a falconer to actually go to one of these goshawk nests and take a goshawk?
Yes, yes.
Sean, on the protected sites, or what, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but do they nest in the same tree every year?
They can. Sometimes they nest in the same tree, but more often than not, they'll be kind of in the same territory. Typically, the way the surveys go throughout the continent is that if you have an established nest, there's a good chance that within 500 meters or maybe 1,000 meters from that previous nest location, that you may find that year's nest. So a lot of times what happens is as you accumulate records for a bird or a pair kind of moving in a forest stand, you'll get a better idea of that, what we would call their home range or their territory. So so as we gather more records, it helps inform locations, and we've put some of that language into the BMPs to kind of help, that we will be able to, not just help reduce disturbance at these nest sites, but gather some more information to then refine BMPs in the future.
Okay, so on the restrictive seasonal logging practices, the word seasonal, there's long-term restrictions then too, correct? Because you can't just go in.
There are no long-term restrictions in our laws. So the protection would only be afforded during the nesting season. That's correct.
And then it's open logging.
Right, and that's roughly, I should know this right off the top of my head, but it's roughly from February to August for this raptor.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a general timeline as to when you may have a recovery plan rolled out for this species?
That's a good question. So for this species particularly, and knowing the stakeholders involved in these landscapes, we'd like to have something together as soon as possible. I think given this preliminary approval, that by the following meeting, we would like to have a draft of a recovery plan, probably some target metrics that would be like kind of the delisting criteria, because I think that's, putting that in place is kind of, really sets the stage for, that we're not just listing to list, that we want to take action for this bird.
Good. Thank you.
Any other goshawk-related questions at this time? All right. Okay, well, a little bit of a more uplifting story in the world of conservation is the peregrine falcon. So here we're proposing to change the listing status of this species from threatened to protected, which would mean it is delisted from the state list. As this population began to recover across the continent, it was removed from the federal list in 1999, and not too long ago, in 2019, we acted to upgrade it from endangered to threatened. And now today, after 40 years of more than 40 years of conservation action in Pennsylvania, I have a very unique opportunity to stand here and propose a change of this status to protected, and have this be the third raptor for Pennsylvania to be identified as a recovered population. In 2013, the agency finalized a recovery plan for this species, and it clearly and concisely outlined the criteria for delisting. And I'm going to move through those three criteria. So the first one is an estimate of population size that was calculated using an equation that accounts for lower success at artificial nest sites. So artificial nest sites primarily are bridges and buildings, whereas the cliff sites are kind of weighted as a 1-to-1, and the artificial structures are kind of a 25%. So it's like 4 artificial structure nests are equal to 1 cliff nest. And the mark to hit is 22 territorial pairs in this functional population that we like to call it. And 22 pairs was determined by, it's half of the historic population that occurred in the state. So this is pre-DDT. We know of 44 nest locations in the state. So the target was to get halfway there to kind of say that we have a recovered and viable self-sustaining population. The second criteria was more related to the productivity of individual nests. So this was that of all those nests that we monitor, whether they be on artificial or cliff structures, that half of them successfully raise at least 1 young to fledge out of that nest. So half of our pairs, if we see success. And the last is, well, how successful is a nest? So the productivity. So we wanted to have, on average, 1.5 fledglings, 1.5 young that leave the nest from that year's nests. And these 3 criteria need to be met for at least 3 consecutive years. Whoop. So let's run through some of these criteria. The first one is this functional population size. This chart shows the recovery of peregrine falcons in Pennsylvania all the way back to its reintroduction in the mid-1980s. The blue bars are nest sites located on cliffs. The greenish tan are bridges, and the orange tones are buildings and towers, and green are active quarry sites. The things to pay attention to on this chart are, one, the dashed line moving across our functional pair criteria number, which is 22 pairs. And the functional equation, or the functional population, is this dark line moving up. And in 2018, the functional population hit 22 and has not looked back since. And in fact, it's worth noting that just this year, we have hit 22 natural cliff sites. So in 2021, we're meeting that mark for 1 year, albeit, but 1 year with just our natural cliff sites. What about so we have functional population, and we've met that mark since 2018. What about this 50% success rate of nests? We've been hitting that rate since 2014. The data is not in yet for 2021. There are still falcons out there raising young birds as we speak. And then how about how productive are those nests? Looking for 1.5 or higher, and we've also had that since 2014, which means starting in 2018, we have hit the marks for 18, 19, and 20, which means at the conclusion of last year's season in 2020, we met the criteria for delisting. So it's important to note that the agency's work doesn't end at delisting. If the proposed delisting is finalized, it includes a separate action to vote on to increase the cost of take from $200 to $2,500, and that falls right in suit with our 2 other recovered raptors, both the bald eagle and the osprey. And that's just an added financial deterrent to kind of help prevent any loss of adults, young, or eggs. Additionally, We'll be starting conversations with many property managers of both buildings and bridges to discuss actions to minimize those disturbances, because similar to the goshawk currently, as a protected species, there'll still be an environmental review, so that still gives us a way to communicate with property owners that have these nests on them. And last, the recovery plan lays out a post-delisting monitoring plan. So that recovery plan written in 2013 put together a 10-year plan to continue to monitor the success and ensure the recovery of this species. And I had to put this up. So this is in April 1968, Game News. Ron Jenkins wrote about the extirpation of peregrine falcons from Pennsylvania and notes that it's one of the world's most magnificent birds. For Pennsylvania to be able to claim it as a resident is a merit in itself. And so it's a great moment in Pennsylvania conservation to stand here and propose the status change from threatened to protected. And with that, there's just some very important people to thank in this program. Dan Brawning has been spearheading this since the early 90s and recently retired. And our bird team of Patty Barber and Art McMorris is our peregrine program coordinator. Several staff have played a role in the success of this program. And none of this would be possible without the support of Pennsylvania and the citizens. Each year, more than 250 volunteers help identify nest locations, confirm adult birds, determine nesting status, and even rescue young. And every single action taken by a Pennsylvanian to help a peregrine has led us to this very moment. And this is a list. I believe there's nearly 500 names on this list that are folks that have volunteered their time and service to help with this peregrine program. And with that, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them, and thank you again for your time.
Sean, I have two questions.
Yeah.
You said that the peregrine falcon was reintroduced. Does that mean that it was actually extinct in Pennsylvania?
It was extirpated from Pennsylvania, yes. So they hacked birds to get them to come back to Pennsylvania. And they actually initially hacked them from cliff sites, and they had predation problems. So they went to some artificial sites, some building locations, and that's really where the birds kind of took hold and started to move across the state.
Where did they get them from?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I should know that, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I certainly can find out for you.
And you lost me on replacement costs. What exactly does that mean? If somebody shoots one or kills one?
Yeah. So
$100 fine, or
yeah. So okay. So if
steals one, a falconer steals one, or
yeah. So it's the take of a bird or an egg or a young. So that would, for all intents and purposes, that would be that one's killed, and any bird, any migratory bird that would occur, and law enforcement proves it, it's a $200 fine. And what happened, I believe it happened when the bald eagle was delisted, that they brought in kind of this added fine. So currently, if it's a threatened and endangered species, it's a $5,000 fine for the loss of an individual. So this is kind of a step down from it to kind of ease us into a world of delisted. Of a recovered population.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. Thank you again for your time.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, next up, we'll have Andrew Ward give us an overview of the Bobwhite Quail Management Plan.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Ward, and I am the new quail biologist here at the Game Commission. I want to thank you all for being here today and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about quail. I'm recently a graduate of the University of Georgia, where I studied northern bobwhite breeding ecology through tall timbers down in central Florida. But I'm here today to talk to you about our northern bobwhite quail management plan, as it is being proposed to be released for public comment in tomorrow's session in our new business section. So to understand where we're going with quail, we need to know where they've been and what's gotten us to this point. So bobwhite are extirpated from the state. They are a native species that at one point took advantage of our great agricultural and wild lands. And though those lands still persist on the landscape, their use and management has changed over time. So in particular, older farming practices cultivated more weedy crops that had a variety of different vegetation and insects throughout that were utilized by bobwhite, as well as other early successional grassland and shrubland species. Our more modern farming practices are a little bit more manicured and don't really provide those benefits to our early successional species such as bobwhite. Next is our wild lands. A lot of our native grasslands have succeeded over time into more shrubland and then forested land, which is no longer beneficial to the species. So this shift took place over time, and it wasn't until 2013 and 2014 through extensive surveys that the population was deemed to be extirpated, though it's thought that they were extirpated in the late 20th to early 21st century. So now moving forward, we're planning to reintroduce bobwhite to Letterkenny Army Depot as our bobwhite quail focus area. And we chose this site for a couple specific reasons. The first is that it historically held our highest density of wild bobwhite in the state. Another point is that its relatively mild winters will help overwinter survival, which is an important metric for the species, as well as our great partners we have on the site. Both our Letterkenny staff down there, as well as our full-time quail our Habitat Forever specialist, have been able to aid in manpower, funding, and equipment, all with that same mindset of getting this project done, which we've ramped up in the past few years. So with that decline in habitat, bobwhite are not the only species that have declined along with it. There's also a number of early successional grassland, shrubland species that have declined with our bobwhite. And they're also the same species that are going to benefit most from this habitat management. So in this past year, we've recorded the only known recording of the state endangered dickcissel on the property. We've also seen an uptick of grassland birds, such as your declining eastern meadowlark. We've seen an increased number of woodcock throughout the property, as well as anecdotally with our rabbits. So this is really great early but supportive evidence that what we're doing and what we have done over the past few years is benefiting more than just bobwhite, but also that it shows great sign for our bobwhite reintroduction efforts. And this work doesn't happen on its own. We've used a variety of different management techniques over the years. We've really ramped up our efforts in the past few years, since about that 2018 timeframe. We've used tools like timber harvest, where we've removed 1,440 acres of overstory from the site. And by this time next year, we estimate that we'll have 1,668 acres removed from the property. We've used prescribed fire on 1,930 acres of the property thus far, and we have pretty ambitious plans for this coming year as long as the weather helps us out. We've disked 58 acres on the property and applied herbicide to about 500 acres to quell some of those invasive species, allowing our native vegetation to flourish. So here you can see some before and after pictures. You see in 2018, even in the dormant season, coming into the growing season, without any real leaves and whatnot on those trees, you can't see very far. It's pretty dense and nasty, not too beneficial. Moving in after we removed the overstory and put a fire through that section in 2020, You can see that it's relatively barren, but coming into the growing season of 2021, it looks a lot better, a lot more like quail habitat, bringing in a lot more forbs, grasses, as well as some invasives along the way that we're continuing to manage. But we're getting there over time, and we'll continue to work towards that end goal. So once our habitat is where it needs to be, we plan on bringing in 800 to 1,000 wild bobwhite from other states. We're working with 14 other states that we've been in communication with thus far, with really positive feedback from about 12 of them. So in the coming years, we'll work to build some agreements with those states and set up logistics for our translocation efforts, which will happen in the spring of 2023. So once we have bobwhite on the property is not exactly where this project ends, but really where the next chapter begins. So at that point, we'll continue to monitor our habitat and maintain that over time, as well as monitoring those other early successional grassland shrubland species that will utilize that habitat. More specifically, with our bobwhite, we'll tag a number of them and deploy radio transmitters, monitoring survival, reproduction, movement, resource use, and just overall population dynamic metrics. So, and this is not where the project ends either. Once we build that core area and establish our quail on the site, we plan to expand beyond the bobwhite quail focus area. We're currently working on developing some focus groups as well as surveys to better understand how private landowners around this site make their decisions and hopefully be able to bring them on board with our plan. There's also state game lands 235 in the area, which would be great to be able to see our birds move over onto that piece of public land. Yes?
You got one little red dot up in Erie County. Can you explain that?
In Erie County?
Like right up by the lake.
So I did not build this map. I frankly, if I were able to zoom in, I would say that that is likely snowfall, because a lot of the coloring there is snow throughout the year. So that green is going to be those areas that bobwhite really belong and are going to be able to flourish. Up in there, I would assume that that gets into a more pinkish area that's for greater snowfall. Okay, thank you. So as we move forward, we have great vision for the future, and though there's been a lot of work on this project, we're hoping for great things moving forward. So with that, I want to thank our partners that have helped along the way and continue to help. Thank you to all of our commissioners here for giving me the opportunity to talk about this, as well as all of you in the audience. I want to give a special thank you to Tom Keller, because he's really the one that got this project off the ground. Like I said, I'm the new quail biologist, so he's really the one that put in all the legwork and got us to where we are today. So thank you to Tom. And with that, if anyone has any questions.
Andrew, I have a couple questions, I think.
Sure.
So when the trap and transfer of the quail, is that being spearheaded through the National Bobwhite Quail Initiative? And where do they stand with the project right now? Because I know they've been kind of keeping their finger on the pulse of everything. Where are they at?
Yeah, so exactly. We are working with them, and we're in continued talks with them. We are still on their list of the earliest likely translocation. We've been working with them closely. They haven't necessarily given their final stamp of approval, which they're just not going to do until we're at that very last moment. But we've worked with them along the way, and we've gotten really great feedback from them, and we're keeping them involved and sharing what we have and taking that constructive criticism and suggestions along the way.
So this is one of those projects that's been going on for an awful, awful long time. So let's just talk specifically about how long we've been at Letterkenny. Are we happy with where we're at this point?
Yeah, so I may have briefly mentioned, but we've really ramped up our efforts in the past few years. Previously, a lot of that was done through volunteers and whatnot. And this scale of project, you just can't really get it done that way. So since then, we've brought in contractors to do that timber removal, that overstory removal, as well as we have an Army Corps of Engineers grant this year to do some more broad herbicide application. So yes, I do know that it has been going on for a long time, but it has made strides in that time period, and I'd be happy to share that with you and maybe even get you out on the site if you are interested at some point. But we
gone before that happens. So
okay,
it's all good. But I've kind of been watching this from the beginning of this whole bobwhite quail reintroduction, and it's kind of exciting to be getting to the point where in 2023 we're going to be dropping birds on the site. So
yeah, I could not agree with you more.
thank you.
No? Thank you very much.
Surely, thank you.
All right, and next, David Stainbrook will give an overview of the development process and key features of revised agricultural deer control program.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to listen to us with this proposed change, and happy to be here in person. I think I've given 2 or 3 presentations virtually, and it's a lot different in person, so happy to be here. So what we're going to talk about today is the agricultural deer control program. This is what we've typically called red tag. It's a program that falls under Title 58, sections 147.551 to 559 of the Pennsylvania Code. And it's a special permit that we give out for deer control related to agricultural depredation. And it's administered by the Bureau of Wildlife Protection. And I want to state that this is different than the state law, Title 34, Chapter 21, which is Section 2121, which is destruction for agricultural protection. That one is a state law that we don't have the ability to change, and it allows a farmer to shoot any deer at any time for depredation. This is one of the regulations that we have that gives us the ability to provide permits for a farmer to bring hunters on to do it outside of the deer season. So, like I said, this is a program that allows farmers to enlist the help from hunters. This is outside of the deer season. They can still use hunters and DMAP during the deer season, but this would be something outside of that season. It's only for antlerless deer, so you can't take any antlered deer. And it has to be on that farmer's property. And like I said, it's been known as the red tag program, and this is because traditionally there were these red plastic snap tags that were used. The logistics of this is why we're here today. So basically, a farmer would apply for these through our agency. The agency would distribute these red plastic tags to the farmer. The farmer would then have to find hunters that would be willing to come onto the property and try to distribute those red tags to the hunter, get them back at the end of the season, and go through the logistics of the actual physical plastic tags. We'd have to get those back at the end of the season and record the numbers and everything. So also, when they would issue those tags, those red tags to hunters, they can only give one tag to one hunter. So a hunter could only take one deer through this program. If they received a red tag and they were unable to hunt for some reason, they'd have to give back the tag to the farmer so the farmer could give that to another hunter. The reporting requirement actually fell on the farmer, not the hunters here. So a farmer would have to, every single month, provide a written report to the agency whether any deer were taken or not. This report would come in, our staff would have to look at these reports, tally the numbers, do all that reporting. So one of the reasons that we're here today is to look at the logistics of this program, start to look at some of the things that we can do to improve the efficiency of it. So just to give a little bit more background on the program, It's not a real big program, but it's certainly an important opportunity that we should provide as an agency. So last year, there were only about 400 properties statewide that participated in red tag, and only about 1,600 antlerless deer were taken through this program. So, you know, that's less than 1% of our total antlerless harvest in a typical year. So this is a very small program for that when you're thinking of it as statewide. So it's a deer damage program. It's really providing that opportunity to address the problems that are affecting their livelihood, and we're trying to use hunters to provide that opportunity rather than them using, say, the state law that allows them to remove them year-round. So we're here today to look at, you know, some of the things that we can do to address the logistics and efficiency of this program. So staff were asked to review this program, find out what was working, what wasn't working. So the deer and elk section, this predates my time here. I've been here about 8 months, but our deer section had spent time working with the users of this program, the administrators of the program. They hosted a meeting to talk about what was working, what wasn't working, and how can we fix those things that aren't working. Additionally, we met with our internal staff that administer the program to find out some of the things that we can do in addition to the users. So some of the things that were major concerns or some limitations with this program that came out of these meetings, the first one was the actual distribution of those red tags from us to the farmers to the hunters, the whole process. It was onerous on everybody's behalf to deal with these red tags. The monthly reporting requirement, that was something that the farmers had mentioned was a burden on them. It's also logistically, for our staff, it's an additional burden. Every one of these properties to be eligible had to be in a hunter access program and put up signs on their properties. This was one of the things that was mentioned as a logistical hurdle as well. And then finally, farmers had a hard time finding hunters that would be willing to come out in the summertime. And then additionally, there's logistics with trying to field dress deer in the summer and use the meat and all that. All right, so what are we proposing? Our first step here is to integrate this whole program into our electronic licensing system. We have the capability to do this. And so we can streamline things by integrating instead of that permit, we issue a tag, just like DMAP. We issue tags to hunters through DMAP. It would make it consistent with all the other permits that we use with the Game Commission, and it will benefit both the farmer and the hunters, as well as the program administrators, just with this simple change. So one, farmers would no longer be responsible for distributing those tags, tracking, dealing with the hunters to get those tags back and forth and sending us monthly reports. Internally, that would reduce the burden on our staff that has to compile all these paper reports and put it together. Additionally, this would shift the harvest reporting onto the hunter, which is, they're already familiar with this. They're doing that with DMAP and regular antlerless licenses, reporting through the license vendor. So they would be doing the harvest report. We would ask that they do it just like with DMAP, where they report their harvest or non-harvest at the end of the season, just like we do with DMAP right now. Additionally, there's currently no fee for the red tag program. We'd like to maintain that no fee for this tag, but going through the online licensing system, there will be a small convenience fee on behalf of the licensing company and vendor. Some further changes to streamline the process and increase ease of use. Right now, like I mentioned, the farmer would be able to give out one tag to one hunter. A hunter could only take a maximum of one deer through this program. We would like to increase that to 4 permits per person, consistent with DMAP. This allows that hunter to be able to use some of those more successful hunters can continue to do that needed service for the farmer. And it's just logistically easier for them to deal with a fewer number of hunters if they need to get the job done than if, finding new ones to take one deer each. What goes along with that is in the regulation, we had a limit of 1 deer utilization. So we'd remove that and make it up to 4 permits per person, and they could utilize every one of them. Again, this is antlerless only. And then finally, remove the PA residency requirement, and that would allow farmers to reach a larger pool of participants. As far as changes to increase consistency with our other programs, removing the public access and signage requirements with this program would be one of the proposals, and it's already in place in our southeast units, 5C and 5D, that they don't have to post and their signage and provide that public access requirement for those units for the red tag program. So this would just expand that statewide. On the back end of things, we would change the permit start and end time, just like all of our other permits in the system, which would go July 1st to June 30th. And we'd also start to work on an auto renewal process so that farmers wouldn't have to completely apply the same way every year, but rather be a streamlined auto renewal process for this. That's something that we still have to work out in the licensing system, but it seems very doable. Another change here is we'd be condensing the valid dates to August 1st to September 15th, and then February 1st to April 15th. And to kind of put this into perspective, throughout the year, here you can see on this figure, I mentioned that state law that allows a farmer to remove deer causing depredation issues year-round. So farmers can still use that action year-round. The current dates in the orange boxes for red tag are February 1st through May 16th and July 1st through September 28th. What we're proposing is a slight change to that, so it's condensed in those summer months. And the reason for this is very few deer are taken during those summer months. So really what we're proposing is keeping or maintaining that time frame when most of the deer are taken with this program, and limiting some of those other issues like, during the fawning season, or issues with trying to utilize the meat during the summer months. And then you also see at the end of the proposed date range, we're dropping it by 2 weeks. That's to keep prevent that overlap of this red tag program with the start of the archery season in some of our special regulation areas. So in summary, these proposed changes will simplify and streamline the program. It'll make it easier for a farmer to apply, enlist the help from hunters, and those hunters will be able to use a more efficient system that they're already familiar with our PALS system. So that is it, and I can take any questions if you have them. Yes?
With this moving to the online system now, will the farmer still have the ability to determine who hunts on his property?
Yes, that's a great question. So with DMAP, there's that option that they can distribute the coupons themselves as the landowner, or they can take that option to put it online for people to see. What we see with this program is actually modeling the handing out the coupons part in this initial phase of this. If we feel like it would make sense to allow it to be online, we can do that, but right now we would only be letting the farmer give out those coupons, just like with DMAP, give out the coupons to the people that go on the property, rather than having it all online.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
The first question I have is, are we still going to call it the red tag program?
I guess if we're not using red tags, we'll have to come up with a different moniker, but...
It has a bad connotation across the state, I think. Anyway,
yeah.
So anyway, that's really not important for the discussion today, but...
Yeah, I mean, technically it's called the Agricultural Deer Control Program, but that is a mouthful,
either.
so...
So farms that are in the red tag program, are we encouraging them to get into the DMAP program too? Because I think it's more beneficial for us for them to be in a DMAP program.
Yeah, so initially with this discussion, we were talking about maybe combining the two programs into, one kind of program that would last through this typical time frame and into the hunting season. But we decided to kind of keep it separate.
My choice is to pay for a DMAP tag or go out there and get a red tag for free. I'm not going to pay for a tag.
You're saying if you were a hunter that would be coming onto this property?
Have access to the farmer's land, he's in a DMAP program, but he has red tags too. I'm not gonna take a DMAP from him if I can get a red tag, just a thought.
Yeah, so I mean, both opportunities would be available, and yes, there's a nominal fee for a DMAP per tag, but you know, that's up to the hunters and the farmers to use this. You know, the big important thing here is this is not necessarily a recreational program. This is a
No, I get that.
The component of helping them deal with their issues.
The other question I have is these hunters that are using the crop damage kill, Title 34.
Yes.
What powers do we have to kind of force them into this red tag program to get people onto their farms? Are we going out? Are we talking to them? Are we giving them options? Because I know that the crop kill is not just, it's just not a heavy burden on the farmer. It's a heavy burden on the agency. Because we're going out and picking up the deer. We're trying to get rid of them, finding places for them. In the summer, they're going bad. So we have to find a place to dispose of them. I mean...
Yeah, I think that's essentially why
that's part of the big problem.
That's why we're here today, right? We're trying to provide a more convenient way for these farmers to use a program that we can provide them rather than, you know, use that other, option. So, you know, to make this convenient so that they're more willing to use this is going to benefit the agency as well as DMAP. And so we will...
Is it going to work? Are we going to get those farmers that are killing deer? I mean, and whatever. I just, let's try to figure out how to encourage them to use a program where the meat's going to be used, as opposed to laying it on the, on the feet of the game wardens, who have to figure out what to do with it when it's done.
They had a committee that put a lot of work into this. I think they did a pretty good job, and this program should be an improvement over the existing.
All right. I know this is a long, stretched out problem that we've had in the agency. So anything that we do to improve it is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly here, but...
To answer your first question, what power do we have to change their ability to use that state law?
Well, that's what I mean.
I don't know that
Under Title 34, they can go out and shoot anything
Exactly.
they want,
So,
anytime they want, but...
So at a minimum, what we should do is make a system that is as convenient as possible for them to, use hunters to do it, so.
Yeah.
Currently, we have a list both on the website and at the regional office that we provide to hunters with the red tag funds. So they are advertised.
Under the Title 34, is a landowner allowed to shoot an elk?
That's a good question. I believe yes, because it's all wildlife species that are causing damage, and so elk are not one of the ones they can't.
Does anybody know, has it been happening, or?
I believe there has been a history of farmers using that option, yes.
Yes. I don't know if Mr. Carlini would want to weigh in on that, but I know last year we had, I think, close to probably 19 elk killed for crop damage.
And
David, just to clarify, the red tag, if you will, is not, you can't use that red tag during the regular archery season or regular.
Correct, yeah. So this would just be outside of the regular hunting season. During the hunting seasons, that's when you would shift to DMAP or regular WMU-based licenses. The other difference would be during this time, it's antlerless only. During the hunting seasons, when somebody would come on with a DMAP permit, they could take an antlered deer during that time. So that would be the other big difference. You had the question about why would they bother to come in with DMAP? Because during that time, they could take an antlered deer as well, because it'd be during the regular hunting season. So, there's other differences as well. And they would have to follow the implement requirements for those seasons as well.
Don't get me wrong, I appreciate what we're doing, because it's a huge step in the right direction, but I just want to, if I were king for a day and could wave my wand, I'd want to get rid of those crop-killed deer to take the burden off of our staff.
Yeah.
And I know there's no easy solution.
Yeah, we can only do so much.
But, whatever.
All right, any other questions on this? All right, thank you so much.
David.
And I'm the last one on of the talks here, so
They always
thank
say
you.
best for last.
Thank you very much.
We kept all our frustrations to the end.
Just to remind senior staff and the board that we will convene in 10 minutes in the cafeteria.